And we're back with a Catholic Community Showcase. And Deacon Jeff, you're going to have to give me your last name again.
Olson Holler.
Olson Holler.
Yes.
And you're at St. Joseph's?
I was assigned to St. Joseph's about 1.5 years ago. Came here from Omaha.
Omaha?
Yes.
What brought you to Texas?
A&M.
A&M.
Yeah, I work in the Department of Geography at Texas A&M.
And what are some of the ministries you're involved in?
Oh, my.
Yeah, we put them to work.
Yeah. I jumped in to quite a few things. St. Vincent de Paul, spiritual advisor, which I was in Omaha, which is making sure the spiritual needs of the community are taken care of. One of the things I really like about St. Vincent de Paul is that it's not just about service of the poor, but it's also about personal growth, spiritual growth, which we do in community, do as a regular part. We were at St. Joseph's last night for our regular meeting, and we gather for Mass first. So we pray, we eat, and we work together.
And when you're not busy with St. Vincent de Paul and teaching,
then I'm traveling the world.
This is my favorite part of the story. I get jealous. Not so much jealous, just like, I'm like, tell me a story, Deacon.
living vicariously through your
Yes.
travels.
Yeah. Well, being a deacon and being a geographer, the natural fit is Catholic Relief Services, which is the international outreach arm of the U.S. Catholic Conference of Bishops. That, fortunately, since I'm assigned to St. Joseph's and the deacons do preach, there's a program called Catholic Relief Services Global Fellows, where people who can preach, deacons and priests, who are also aware of the ministry of Catholic Relief Services, go on a mission trip to see what Catholic Relief Services is doing in various parts of the world, which I did this past January, where we went to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a country in southern Africa, landlocked, relatively poor, has terrific mineral resources, okay? So there's a tremendous potential there. But there's been political and race issues over the last few decades that have kept development from happening in the way it might. So tremendous unemployment, yet a terrifically well-educated populace. So they've scattered all over the place. And Catholic Relief Services come in to do some reconciliation work. There have been political problems. There's been political violence. People are coming up on another election cycle, and they're trying to get some healing work taking place. One of the other things, as I mentioned, there's terrific poverty. Catholic Relief Services helped with a program called SILK. It's a small independent lending communities. These are like small credit unions. They teach people how to do it. They provide them with a little lockbox and a ledger. You learn how to do basic accounting, and then they set up the rules. They decide what it is they're going to invest their money in somebody's project. You can see it on the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel. Just look for Jeff Olson Holler. The welcome we got from those people was tremendous. They're singing, they're dancing. They have gone out and gotten color-coordinated costumes to welcome us there. Now, I don't sing and dance if I get a Christmas present or if somebody, treats me to a nice meal. They're singing and dancing because the CRS, because your Catholic Church, went out and realized their dignity, honored their dignity as human beings, and helped them. Several women really stick out in my mind. One was so much like a leper beforehand. She was a widow. She had given up. She had no money. She had no hope. She had no future. She had no children. So she didn't see any need to bathe or to, clean her clothes or whatever. Some of these people came in and said, hey, why don't you join us at these meetings? Because like St. Vincent de Paul, part of it is, it's not just the money, it's not just the action, it's the relationship of each other. Part of what makes us Catholic is to gather ourselves together, to be a community. They had her come in, she started taking care of herself, and they told her, look, you're a wonderful cook. People in the village would love to come in and buy your bread, but you've got this dirt floor that you clean with dung. Why don't you borrow some money from us, buy some cement, get somebody to lay a cement floor so you can have a decent kitchen to cook in, and you can pay us back with the money you earned from selling the bread. And she did. This woman who was a terrific outcast, who probably smelled terrible, looked terrible, is now happy and dancing and a member of the community.
Now, when you reach out to these communities, does Catholic Relief Services ask whether you're Catholic before they help you?
No. CRS and St. Vincent de Paul both. It doesn't matter what faith they are. You're all God's children. We're called to serve one another, and we do so irregardless of what faith you might profess.
What would you say has been the most interesting place that your ministry has taken you?
Oh, this was one where, for my previous job in Omaha, I was traveling to Pakistan, and we're staying in a fine hotel, and I just couldn't do it. Okay? I just couldn't abide it. I'm a deacon. I'm ordained to serve. I'm not one about being served. So before I left, I contacted the local CRS rep, and I said, look, can I at least visit your offices and see one of your projects? So they set it up. We're in Islamabad, Pakistan, and I went down, visited them, and we went down into an AIDS clinic down in the slums. We walked up an alley that had raw sewage running down the middle of it. There are wires all over the place from people tapped into the electricity, which had just blown out again. It's 114 degrees. The air is absolutely still. It's dark. There's only a battery-operated lantern for our meeting. And the joy filled the room. These are people who are serving folks who are doubly leprous, who are excluded by their disease and by their community. And yeah, chances are none of them were Catholic. And I came back and told one of my people about it, who was most adventurous, who's climbed most of the big mountains in Pakistan and hung out with Pashtuns in Afghanistan. And I told him where we were and what we were doing. And this man, who is adventuresome as all get out, said, "You guys are crazy." Yeah, we are crazy. We're crazy in love with each other.
We had mentioned earlier during one of the segments about God taking us out of our comfort zone when he's calling us to any form of service. And do you find that it was a stretch for you, or did you feel drawn to this from the very beginning?
I've felt drawn to this for quite some time, and comfort zone left a long time ago. I've gotten busy into other things, but in the past I've done prison ministry and enjoy that. Don't get enough time to do that. I've spent a lot of time in hospice ministry. So, in particularly the actively dying, and particularly the very, very hard cases. You know, going into parts, this was Omaha again, where places where people don't usually go. All right. Going to nursing homes where, you know, I could be buying drugs there as well as receiving them. And you saw amazing things there, amazing acts of love. Thinking of one person in particular who had nothing, who's dying. He gets a small stipend every year, you know, or every month. And with his few dollars, he would go down and to the junk food machine and buy some popcorn and then distribute it in those little medicine cups, those little shot glasses. He was sitting there and counting out 3 or 4 popcorn kernels per person to give to all of the staff and all of his neighbors. You know, the poor tend to be generous beyond belief. There's a marvelous poem in the back of the Liturgy of the Hours, Preaching and Not Doing, William Langland. I won't go into the whole thing here, but basically if there was a level of generosity among the rich that was the same as among the poor, we'd have no problems. All right? Life would be a whole lot easier for one another.
When you moved from Omaha to Texas and basically you're starting in a new place, but in a common ministry, did you find that shared interest in the people that you met in their faith as compared to Omaha in the ministries that you were involved in there? Or did it take some getting used to down here as far as, you know, the people involved in CRS here as compared to there? Or
pretty much the same. The only transition, the biggest transition, was changing from red to maroon. So.
Yeah. You know, and I just remember you coming in, Deacon, you were like, you'd be asking me like, okay, Monsignor and Father Ryan, how do you like things done? And we would just be like, just got to follow us, just shoot from the hip, And there was a small differences, but you really grafted into our parish very easily because, that's one thing about the Catholic Church. it's universal. I mean, there's some small picadillos that your pastor up there that we do or we don't do, but that's small fry stuff, like really small fry. Would you not say that as well, Deacon? It's just small stuff.
Yeah, there's variations in practices, but it's the same liturgy. St. Vincent de Paul is pretty well structured with the rule, which is like the rule of St. Benedict or the rules of other orders. Is really a marvelous document, well worth a read.
Well, you're also, so I think the Lord is pouring into your heart with these various ministries, and you witness to that almost every time I've heard you give a homily. You make a very beautiful connection to the poor and to the lived experience outside, and especially around challenging our particular congregation to express joy in the simple things and express joy as Catholics. Mm-hmm. And you're doing that as well as last Sunday. But I think the Lord's pouring into your heart, but you're also expressing that joy outward in a new way here in this area. You are involving yourself in a new program once a month. Can you tell us about that, the Spiritual Direction Program?
Oh, yeah. There's one thing I've been wanting to do for a long time is become a spiritual director. All priests, all deacons are required to have one, and it's a good idea for the laity as well. Well, Omaha had a terrific program at Creighton, but having the time off to take it and to have Creighton tuition was a bit of a stretch. So there's a spiritual direction formation program just for deacons that the diocese has set up once a month, actually tomorrow. We meet in Austin. We had learned the various forms of directions, the methods of directions, talk about the spirituality of various people of various types, and looking forward to getting into that come about October, November.
How long does a program take for you to be fully trained as a spiritual director?
For us, a year, because we've already started as deacons. You've already got a fair amount of training. There's another one at Broomtree that I'm aware of that is available for folks as well. That one is a bit longer.
Is there something about your ministry, be it St. Vincent de Paul, be it Catholic Relief Services, or even your interest in spiritual direction, that people might not be aware of that you would like to tell them?
Well, all of it comes from Matthew 25 and the Beatitudes. And that was really, well, I should step back and say, I'm a convert. The first time I encountered the Catholic faith to any degree was in college when I took a course called Basic Christian Beliefs from a feminist Presbyterian theologian. And the textbooks were the documents of Vatican II, which is a little strange. You don't hear folks talking about, teaching from the Quran or whatever in a Catholic church. So having a Presbyterian teaching from Catholic documents was, eye-opening. So I remember reading Gaudium et Spes, the joys and the hopes, the fears and anxieties of the people of this age, especially of those who are poor or afflicted in any way. These are the joys and the hopes, the fears and anxieties of the followers of Christ as well. I read that and go, that's amazing. And then I took a look around and I said, no, it doesn't register. People don't believe it. It might be written on paper, but it's not written on hearts. So I wandered about for a little bit and then engaged a community, moved to a community that had that written on their hearts. It took place in their daily lives. It wasn't just preached on Sundays. It was preached day after day after day after day with the work of their hands. And that's when I said, sign me up.
I think that sort of speaks towards a lot of times we don't realize how active our church is in the lives of the poor, the imprisoned, the hungry. And so, this gives us an opportunity to realize that we're all called to share in that chore.
Oh, exactly. I had seen Catholic nuns and Catholic priests serving the poor, doing works of social justice, and there was a lot of injustice at the time. This was in the early 60s. But it was like it was their assignment, okay? It wasn't part of the universal responsibility of Catholics. We're all called to do this by virtue of our baptism. And when we don't do it, when we leave it to the professionals...
Don't get me started, Deacon. Don't get me started. Preach.
There's other things for them to do. As a deacon, I like to get out, try something, learn it well, and then turn it over to somebody else. Get somebody else involved in it.
That's part of your training, isn't it? Start it, hand it over,
Yeah.
move on to something else.
That's really what a deacon does, and that's what I love about Deacon Jeff is that, you're not to be there as a pretty old altar server.
Yeah.
You're not there just to wax eloquently once a month and to be some of this layperson that preaches. No, you serve, and deacon, you're out there serving. I was in the Army, and my commander, I was a chaplain, and he said, if I see you in your office, you're wrong. He was, you're wrong if you're sitting in your office. You need to be out with my soldiers, taking care of my soldiers because I can't. And that's really what a deacon does. Monsignor and I, we take care of the parish and we take care of the big things, right? But, if we had an office and you were in it, you'd be wrong. And deacon isn't in the office, if you will. He's in the office of the world and he's taking care of business. And that's really what a deacon does. And I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, I often said I didn't sign up for this job just because I think I look good in a dress. I did.
But you do.
Thank you.
Well, we say a chasuble, or what the priest wears, and a dalmatic and an alb covers a multitude of sins.
Yes. And poor choices in T-shirts.
and meals. There we go. That's for me.
And we're nearing the end of our segment here. Is there anything that you would like to share with the community out there?
If folks want to see what that reception was like, you can find my YouTube channel, Jeff Olsenholler. Or if you want to see the pictures, I'm on Facebook, Deacon Jeff Olsenholler, Olsenholler.
Well, Deacon, thank you very much for sharing with us this morning.
Well, thank you.
All right, and we will be back shortly.